Hey everyone, my name is Leah and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of an unhaul, and by a bit I mean a pretty large unhaul. I already had some books I wanted to get rid of, and a couple weeks ago I went through all my books again and picked out a bunch more books to unhaul, so I'm going to be going through all of those today. Some of these are actually books that I like but that I just don't want to hold on to. I'm trying to get rid of some of my books, especially since my physical TBR is a little bit out of control. And I'm also planning on moving somewhat soon, and the thought of having to move all these books is really stressing me out. I'm not actually sure how many books are here. I'll count them at some point. I'm also really trying to save up money to move right now, so I actually will be selling all of these. I'll probably post pictures of all the books that I'm selling on Twitter, so if you're interested in buying any of these, you can check that out. I'll link the thread down below whenever I post that. And if I don't sell them on Twitter, I'll probably also post them on my Instagram story, so if you're interested in any of them, you can DM me on Twitter or Instagram. If they don't sell there, I'll probably end up listing them on Depop, and if I do that, I'll link that Depop down below too. Alright, now time to get into these books, because there are a lot of them. First is Wolf in White Van by John Darnielle, which I read earlier this year and I wasn't a big fan of, but I've definitely seen other people enjoy this book. Next is A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. I actually did enjoy this. It wasn't amazing, but I did enjoy reading it, and I actually might continue on with the series. It's just not a book that I see a need to hold on to for myself. Next is A Little Princess. I just don't really see myself reading this edition of it. If I end up wanting it again, I'll probably get the Puffin in Bloom edition because I have Little Women and Anne of Green Gables in that edition. And also, I haven't read this in a while, but I have the feeling it didn't age well. So next is Prisoner of Night and Fog and Conspiracy of Blood and Smoke by Anne Blankman. I haven't read either of these. I've just kind of decided that I don't have an interest in them anymore. Next is Rebel in the Sands by Alwyn Hamilton. I haven't read this and I don't think I'm going to. Next is Foretold, and this is a story collection by a bunch of different YA authors. I honestly only got this in the first place because I got it when I was a big fan of Vampire Academy, because there's a story by Rochelle Mead in here, but I don't have any interest in it anymore. And I never read it. Next is Far Far Away by Tom McNeill. I don't really know what this is about and I never read it. I just don't think I have an interest in it. Next is In the After by Demetria Lunetta, and this is actually a signed edition, so I do feel a little bad about getting rid of this, and I was more up in the air about this, but I've just kind of decided I don't have an interest in it anymore, and I never read this. Next is The Living by Matt De La Pena. I never read this, and I'm never going to. There have been some things that have come out about the author being really problematic, so I'm not going to be picking this up. Next is Stitching Snow by R.C. Lewis. I never read this, and I don't really have an interest in it anymore. Next is All Fall Down and See How They Run by Allie Carter. These are the first two books in her Embassy Rose series, and I did read these and enjoy them, but I really didn't like the last book in the series, so I can't really see myself picking these up and rereading them. Also, if I'm going to be rereading any Allie Carter, I think it's going to be the Gallagher Girls series, because I own those and I really enjoy them. But I don't really see myself reading these again, and if I do, I can just borrow them from the library. Next is Seeker by Arwen Ellis Dayton. I never read this and I don't really have an interest in it anymore. Next is Landline by Rainbow Rowell. I never read this, don't really have an interest anymore, especially because Rainbow Rowell wrote Eleanor and Park, which is racist, so. Next is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I have read this and I did enjoy it, but I don't know if I'd enjoy it now, and I don't really plan on continuing with this series. Next is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I haven't read this and I don't really have an interest in it anymore. Next is The Keeper by David Baldacci. I never read this and I also found out that this isn't the first book in the series and I don't really have an interest in it anymore. Next is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Then there's Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. I really like this edition. I think it's really pretty. I've never read Peter Pan, but I've heard so many things about it being really racist, so I don't think that I'll be picking this up. Next is Redwall, and I never read this. I watched the Redwall TV show as a kid, and I remember that, but I don't have any really strong memories of it, and I don't think I'll end up picking up the books at this point in my life. Then there's Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. I haven't read this, and at this point, I don't think I will. Then there's Steel by Carrie Vaughn. I read this a year or two ago, I think, and I enjoyed it, but I don't really see myself rereading it. Next is Eon by Allison Goodman. I haven't read this and now I don't really plan on reading it. Next is Second Chance Summer by Morgan Madsen. I actually read this past month as of filming. I read this in August and I did enjoy it, but I don't really see myself rereading it. I don't really read that much YA contemporary that's like this anymore, so I don't see myself rereading it. Next is Ask the Passengers by A.S. King, which I read in June, I think, unless it was May. I feel like I've been saying the phrase time is not real in all of my videos lately, but it's not. I read this and I did enjoy it, but I did have some problems with it. Not like huge problems, but I don't think I'll end up rereading it. Next is Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. This was a book that I had to read in high school. I don't really remember much about it, and I don't think I'll read it again. Next is I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zuzak. I read this earlier this year, I think in January, and I know a lot of people really like this book, but I wasn't really a fan. Next is Tarnished Are the Stars by Rosie Thor. I read this last year, I think. I did enjoy this, and I especially liked that there was an ace main character and also a sapphic relationship. I believe I talked about this in my first Sapphic Reads video. If I didn't talk about it in that one, it's coming up in a future Sapphic Reads video. I also read this for a Queer Lit Readathon last year, and I think I had a wrap-up that I posted for that, so I'll link that if you want to hear more of my thoughts on this. I did enjoy it. I think it's worth reading, but I probably won't read it again. I did think there were a lot of tropes and cliches, but I think that's more okay when authors are using those tropes and cliches for characters you haven't normally seen in those kinds of tropes and cliches, so like an ace main character and a sapphic romance. So I do think this is worth reading. Next is Kissing the Witch by Emma Donoghue. This is a collection of sapphic retellings of fairy tales. I did enjoy this. I think it's worth reading, but I probably won't end up picking it up again, and I'll definitely be talking about this in an upcoming Sapphic Reads video. Next are 3 books I had to get for an acting class in college that I'm probably never going to touch again, so if anyone wants some acting books, I have 3 of them for you right here. There's An Actor Prepares, there's Acting the First 6 Lessons, and there's The Actor in You. And The Actor in You I actually read all of because I needed to read it for class. These 2 were required readings for an acting class that I actually ended up transferring out of into the class that required this book. They were the same acting class, just taught by different professors, and this one worked better with my schedule. So I haven't even touched these books. I've just realized something bumped my camera, and my camera angle's all messed up. So I'm going to fix that. I think that fixed the camera angle. I'm sorry if it didn't. Next are the first 3 books in the Missing series by Margaret Peterson Haddix. There's Found, Sabotaged, and Scent. I think Scent is actually book 2. Yeah, Scent is book 2. This is book 3. This is book 1. I read these when I was younger and I enjoyed them, but I don't really see myself picking them up now. I actually read one of Margaret Peterson Haddix's more recent books for a class in college, and while I loved her as a writer when I was a kid, I was a really big fan of her book. They're just not really for me anymore, so I'm going to be getting rid of these. We are on to the last stack of books, but I think this is the tallest one. First up is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Haven't read this. I don't really see myself picking it up soon. Next is Bruiser by Neal Shusterman. I really liked the Unwind dystology by Neal Shusterman when I read them in high school, but I think one problem I would have with those books if I read them now, and a problem that I had with this book, is that the concept of the book is really intriguing, but I'm not that much of a fan of the book itself. I think I'd still like the Unwind dystology if I read it now, but probably not as much as I liked it in high school. I did enjoy reading this, and I thought the concept was interesting, but I don't see myself rereading it, so I'm going to get rid of it. I read this, I think, in May, and if I ever post my May and June wrap-up, which I filmed, but have not edited because I filmed it on my camera, so that footage can only go to my computer, and I'm having computer problems. I don't know if that video will ever see the light of day. Right now I'm filming on my phone, so if I ever post that wrap-up, I'll link that, and you can go see more thoughts I had on this book. Next is The Host by Stephanie Meyer. I never read this. I saw the movie years ago, and I enjoyed the movie. I was going to read the book, but I don't have any plans to anymore. I'm sorry I'm having so many camera angle issues. This also happened in the last video I filmed. I have a very makeshift addition to my tripod for my phone because I can't use my camera to film right now, and it's basically cardboard and duct tape, and I need to get something or make something else, but I can't really afford to buy a phone tripod right now, so you'll just have to bear with my camera angle issues, I'm sorry. Next is The Man Who Was Thursday, A Nightmare by G.K. Chesterton. I read this for a class freshman year of college, and I don't really see myself reading it again anytime soon. Next is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, and unlike I feel like every other high schooler, I didn't have to read this in high school, and I was going to read it, but I don't really see myself picking it up anytime soon, so I'm going to get rid of it. Next is Don Quixote. I had to read this for a class in college. Did not read the whole thing. I'm not actually sure how much of this I read, but this is a chunker, and I have other chunky books I would rather read, so I don't think I'm going to be picking this one up. Next is The Divine Secrets of the Ya-Ya Sisterhood by Rebecca Wells. Honestly, I partially got this because of the cover, because it's really pretty and it has deckled edges, and it's just a really pretty edition of the book. And I watched this movie when I was a lot younger. I'd say I was probably like 12 or something, so I don't really remember anything about the movie, and so the fact that I saw the movie and that the cover was pretty made me pick it up, but I have no memory of the movie. I don't really plan on rewatching the movie, and I don't really have any interest in this anymore. Next is A Twist in the Tale by Leanne Dobbs. I got this because it looked like a cute murder mystery with cats, but I started reading it and I didn't really enjoy it and ended up DNFing it, so I'm going to get rid of this. Next up is The Raven Boys and The Dream Thieves. Before you say anything, don't worry, I love the Raven cycle. The only reason I'm getting rid of these is because I have the hardback copies right here, and I don't really like the paperback version, especially the boys on the front of the Raven cycle cover. Just why? So I'm going to be getting rid of these. Next is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I've heard good things about this, but I've also heard that it's kind of sexist and that I probably won't enjoy it based on some other things that I've heard, so I'm not going to be picking this one up, but I know a lot of people really do love this book. Next is The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne. I thought I had heard good things about this, but apparently the author got into an argument on Twitter with the Auschwitz Museum about this book, so not great, and also he then later wrote a transphobic book. So I'm not going to be reading this. Next is Every Day by David Levithan. I haven't read this. I haven't really read anything by David Levithan, and I don't plan on reading this. Next is Black Heart by Holly Black. I haven't read this, and I think it's the third book in this series, and I don't have the first two. Next is We Are the Ants by Sean David Hutchinson. I was looking forward to reading this, especially because it's by a gay author and has a gay main character, but this author also wrote The State of Us, I think it's called, and people have brought up a lot of problems with this book, so I don't really plan on reading anything by this author, so I'm going to get rid of this. Next is The Orphan Queen by Jodi Meadows. I read this and I did enjoy it. It wasn't amazing, but it was an entertaining reading experience. Unfortunately, I started the second book and didn't really enjoy it and DNF'd, so I don't see myself revisiting this first book since it's the first in a series. Next is The 9 Lives of Chloe King. I know there's a TV show of this, but I haven't seen that, and I don't really have an interest in this book anymore. Next is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I have read this and I enjoyed it at the time, but I don't really plan on reading any Rainbow Rowell's books in the future. Alright. I had camera issues once again, but I think it's fixed now. Next is the Winners Trilogy by Marissa Rutkowski. I'm a little disappointed about getting rid of these because they're so pretty and they look so good all together, but I've just decided I don't really have an interest in reading them anymore. Next is Marley and Me by John Grogan. I've seen the movie this is based off of and it made me cry, and I don't really feel like reading the book anymore, so I'm going to get rid of this. Next is City of Saints and Thieves. I haven't read this and I don't plan on reading it anymore. Next is Frontlines and Silver Stars by Michael Grant. My makeshift tripod has decided to give up on me, so I'm just going to do a little mini vlog style for the rest of this video, which I only have these two books to talk about, so it won't be for too long. So I have read Frontlines before, and I enjoyed it then, but I have the feeling if I read it now, I would have some problems with it. And also, the author has been problematic. I have the Gone series by him, and I have a nostalgic connection with that, and the whole series is signed by him. So I think I'm going to keep those and just kind of tuck them away because I don't want to support the author any further. And unfortunately, Frontlines is signed to me, it's personalized. But if anyone wants a signed copy to someone else, and the second book in the series that's not signed, feel free to buy those from me. Thankfully, my tripod gave up at an okay time because that is the end of this unhaul. I'm not sure how many books there were, and they're now spread out all over the floor, and I need to go do some things, so I'm not going to count them right now, but I will put however many number of books there are probably in the title of the video or the description box, so you will know by the time I post this video. If my finger was covering the camera that whole time, I'm so sorry. So if you have any thoughts on the books I unhauled, let me know. If you don't have any thoughts on the books, feel free to comment with a little emoji. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you later. When did my camera get tilted? Ah! Already dropping things. First is Wolf in White Van by Can I speak like a human? Is that mostly straight? It's fine if this camera angle isn't straight the whole time because that just reflects me not being straight ever.